To my far right, Margie Buchanan from the Haverford Township Codes Office. Next to Margie is Kelly Kirk, Code Enforcement Officer for Haverford Township. Ken Richardson, a voting member.
Good evening.
To my immediate right, Bill Rose, voting member. Good evening. My far left, Jessica Vitale, a voting member.
Good evening.
Seated next to Jess is Ed McGargy, a voting member. And to my immediate left, our esteemed solicitor, Bill Malone. We have one continued case and two new cases on the agenda this evening. But before we begin, would our Cub Scout guests like to lead us all in the pledge? Whenever you're ready. Thank you. All right, our first, or actually continued case is Z20-5. Union United Methodist Church, owner of 200 Brookline Boulevard, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2207-001490, who seeks a variance from section 182701B7 and 182701C3B2 to permit the existing changeable sign to be replaced with a 28-inch by 76-inch amber LED sign with animation and graphics. The property is owned INS and located in the 7th Ward. Jessica, would you please take that decision?
Are we gonna?
Oh, actually,
Yes,
before we do the decision.
Before we get to that, we did receive, as requested, correspondence on behalf of the applicant dated February 27, 2020, which addressed the lighting and radiance comparison between the existing sign and the proposed LED sign. That has been received and reviewed by the members of the board. I would suggest that that be marked as Exhibit A5. And then with that,
I moved a little too quick. Sorry, Greg.
with that, other than that, is there anything else on behalf of the applicant?
There's not.
With that, I would suggest that the board close the record, and if they're ready, render a decision.
Are there any questions from board members regarding Exhibit A5?
No.
All right, with that, we'll close the record on that case. And is the board prepared to vote? Jessica, are you prepared to vote?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
And so am I. Jessica, would you please take that decision?
I vote to approve the application with the following conditions. The overall size of the sign and pedestal will not exceed the height, width, and depth of the current sign. There will be no animation or graphics, only static messages will be displayed. Static messages can be changed no more than once per day. There shall be no advertising for any purpose or on behalf of any entity, including third-party tenants or other users of the property, except for Union United Methodist Church operations and activities. The sign is to be a single color, amber, per the notes of testimony. The admitted light is to be a maximum of 6,000 nits, or 557.4 foot candles during the daytime. 7.4 foot candles during the daytime, and a maximum of 4,000 nits, or 371.6 foot candles in the evening. Hours of operation for the sign to be 7 a.m. to 11 o'clock p.m., and the work will be completed within a year and in accordance with the note of testimony.
Ed?
I concur.
Bill?
I concur.
Kenny?
I agree.
And so do I. That application's approved 5-0 with those conditions.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we thank you, everybody, for your thoughtfulness.
Here for. Does O'Driscoll have a lawyer? Yeah.
Wait 1 second.
case. All right. We're going to go out of order from the agenda. And the next case will be Z20-7, Handmaids Sacred Heart, owners of 616 Coopertown Road, Haverford, PA, DC folio number 22-0500-19400, who seek approval to construct a 12-foot by 8-foot shed per the conditions of the zoning hearing board, case number 10 of 1957, and from number 16 of 1960, and a variance from section 182-602C5 to encroach into the required 50-foot setback by 44 feet. The property is owned INS and located in the 5th ward. So who's present for that?
Yes, my name is Michael Schaefer. I am the treasurer for Cub Scouts Pack 500 in Coopertown, and the Handmaidens have graciously allowed us to speak on their behalf in order to allow us to place a shed upon their site at which we can keep stored the items that we've accumulated in terms of camping gear, pine wood derby tracks, and other items that we just need to really access a couple times a month. Historically,
So Michael, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
yes,
So you're not an attorney, you're here to present the application,
yes,
right? So before, everything you say is considered testimony.
okay,
So I need to swear you. And I'm going to ask you if you have any exhibits. Okay? So please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
And once again, your full name and the capacity in which you appear this, please.
I'm Michael Schaefer, treasurer of Cub Scouts Pack 500. SCHAFFER.
Thank you, Mike. So you had some items attached to the application that was submitted to the township?
Yes, we tried to submit everything that was requested, which might be requested, but if there is additional information, I'd be more than
So
happy to gather that.
in order to make them part of the official record of this case, they need to be marked as exhibits and identified for the record. So how about if we go off the record for a couple minutes and Mr. Malone will help you mark the exhibits? Okay?
Great.
So we're off the record. Chop it.
While we were off the record, I marked 6 exhibits, and I want to go through these just to make sure that they're properly identified. So, Mr. Schaefer, I marked as Exhibit A1 a certificate of liability insurance for the property located at 616 Coopertown Road, Haverford, PA, with the insured being Cradle of Liberty Council 525. Who is Cradle of Liberty Council number 525?
That is the overseeing body for Cub Scouts Pack 500.
And did I properly identify that exhibit?
Correct.
Exhibit number 2 is a 2-page this is where I'm confused. It says it's a 5-page document, but I have 4 pages of a shed license agreement between Cub Scout Pack 500 and the owners of the property.
Yes, I believe the 5th page of that document is actually the image of the shed, which might have been entered as a
Actually, that's
separate
the
document.
6th page.
That
I
is
don't have a
6th?
page 1.
It would have,
But for our purposes here, that's not as relevant. The 4 pages of the words are the license agreement between the Cub Scout Pack and the owner of the property. Is that correct?
correct.
And we'll get to this, but there is a representative of the owner of the property that will confirm tonight that they are giving you the ability to proceed with this application tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Exhibit A3, just referenced, is a photograph of the proposed shed, which is not presently on the property, but this is the actual shed that is proposed to be placed on the property. Is that
Correct.
Exhibit A4 is a decision from 1957 regarding the property from what was then the Board of Adjustment of Haverford Township, Delaware County. Is that correct?
Correct.
Exhibit A5 is a 1960 order from the Board of Adjustment of Haverford Township, Delaware County. Is that correct?
Correct.
And A6 is what I identify as a site plan of the entire property. Is that correct?
Correct.
Other than that, does the applicant intend to present any other exhibits tonight other than testimony?
No.
I'll hand it over to Peyton.
Please continue with the purpose, the shed.
The purpose of the shed would be to house materials that the Cub Scouts use on a monthly or a bi-monthly basis, first aid kits, camping equipment, Pinewood Derby track, those sort of items.
What is the size of this proposed shed?
12 by 8.
At the height?
I can't, is it?
7 feet. It's an A-frame, 7 to 8 feet.
I don't recall exactly, but it's, I could find that out, but it was a little under 7 maybe, approximately.
At the roof line, or at the ridge line of the roof, or at the low end of the roof?
At the top end.
Anything else you'd like to add before the board asks you some questions? No? Get it?
Yes, one of the criteria when you're asking for relief is that you're requesting the minimum amount of relief necessary to meet your needs. So is this 12 by 8 by approximately 7 foot shed the minimum amount?
Yes, so this has historically been in the half of the garage of our den leader, who unfortunately has had his fifth child and requires utilizing that space. He's being very selfish and taking that space for helping to house his family now. And we are looking for a space now in where we could put this, and we've measured it out and figured that we would need approximately just a little bit less than that. So we're hoping that that 96 square feet should be able to house just what we have and, perhaps a couple more items.
All right, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Schaefer, I don't know if you'll know this, is there a reason that this building, this shed, which would not qualify as an accessory building under the code, cannot be put within the side and rear or whatever yard setback is applicable to this property?
So the existing setback areas on this property would actually put it into the Serenity Garden, which would not make it, which would be an undue disturbance to the handmaids and
So-
the purpose of keeping it as a reserve.
So, refer you to A6
Yes,
map, which, and the upper edge of this map is where the proposed shed would go at the end of the parking lot, presumably, right?
so yes, it's set back off of the street a good 30 feet behind the trees, which are not visible when there are leaves on the trees, but it would be visible when leaves are down. And yes, it's at the edge of the parking lot.
And let me ask Kelly, do you know if this is a side yard or a rear yard, considering this is a sort of a corner lot?
That would be the side yard.
Okay, so is there a reason that this couldn't be put 50 feet inside the property line on the parking lot?
That would take away parking spaces from the handmaids. And again, we are very grateful for them being willing to work with us and don't want to do anything that would put them out.
If I held up this map, could you indicate where the Serenity Garden is? I'm not sure I see it on this map.
Sure.
Actually, what I would suggest is I'm going to have my map marked as Exhibit A7 and have it actually marked, the pen where that is. Of course, the entire property is used for retreats. So just for the record, Mr. Schaefer drew a circle near the upper left-hand corner of the exhibit A7. I'm just going to put the initials SG there and hand it over to Mr. Rhodes.
Okay, thank you. So that's helpful. And is there a reason that this shed can't be put adjacent to the parking lot without losing a parking spot let's say, between Coopertown Road and the, sorry. Between the road and the parking lot, which
Well,
is, by my recollection, a wooded area, but
It is a wooded area, which I believe the sisters were using for, to have walking paths, yeah, so they were, that was a part of their, for their retreats, for people to have walking paths to go through there, and that would not be aesthetically pleasing to that.
did the sisters give you any options other than the location on the map that you've identified as the requested location?
No, no, this was what would work. This was the way that we could have something that could be mutually beneficial. They were willing to offer us this space, and this was really the spot that was away from all of their activities at the center that would work best.
And presumably, within the rear yard of this property, there's not a suitable place? Is that, I mean, this property is a big property. And what you're asking for is a fairly deep penetration into the side yard setback to put this shed fairly close to the neighboring property.
Yes,
And that's a hardship for the applicant, that they have to put it there, that's what they believe is to be their hardship?
well, the other areas are areas where one takes contemplative time to self-reflect and whatnot, and those other areas being 50 feet back from any of those other areas, as you can see from the map, puts it in the middle of one of their other contemplative areas, I guess, so to speak.
Okay, and then there is,
And I'm sorry, one last item is having the shed in this area allows it for folks to easily come in and out to load and unload items into the shed from
Right.
from the trucks that might be, as we would load stuff up to take away for a camping trip.
but the shed's not actually up against the driveway.
No, but it would be 10 feet off of the parking lot.
By this measure, by this map, you have 5-foot gradient showing its distance from the chain link fence. And it would suggest that the closest corner of the shed to the nearest corner of the parking lot is at least 25 or 30 feet.
Is that,
You're not sworn, so if you want to come up, I'll swear you in and you can answer questions.
come on up, no? Yeah, come on up. I mean, we put this in the approximate spot in which it would be.
I'm just going to ask only one of you to speak at a time for each other, because Arlene needs to keep an accurate record. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and capacity in which you appear for the court, please.
Nicholas DiPatri, D-I-P-A-T-R-I, and I am a den leader in Pac 500 Cub Scouts.
Could I also ask for someone else to be sworn in as well?
Sure.
He's an architect, he's been helping with the drafting of the drawings.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and capacity in which you appear this evening?
Paul Avizier, A, V as in Victor, A, Z as in Zebra, I-E-R. I'm a den leader with the PAC and also a licensed architect.
All right, Paul, my question may have resonated better with you. No offense, right? But on this map, you have provided us with measurements showing that the chain link fence is 5 feet inside the property line, and that the rear side of this shed, the back of the shed, exterior wall is approximately 5 feet from the chain link fence. Based on Exhibit A7, the relative spacing of this suggests, and the width of the shed is marked at 12 feet, right, as was testified earlier. But the closest corner of the shed to the nearest corner of the parking lot looks to be at least 35, 40 feet from the parking lot. Yeah,
I forget what I drew.
I'm talking about this distance here.
Let me look at that right there. Actually, we have it on there. 24 feet is what I identified, approximate dimension from the corner.
Although this,
And then you're right.
Yeah.
It is the exhibit more.
yeah,
The placement of the shed is working around the existing trees that are there. There's also a grade change from the parking lot down into the area, so we're trying to keep it on a higher part to avoid any drainage issues around the shed itself.
but could the shed be on pillars in the back? I mean,
We're
it could be
building a stone base,
stone base.
a railroad tie and stone base for it to sit on. But there is, along the fence line, it is a bit of a drainage gully there, and so we're just trying to be conscious of keeping that off as much as we can.
So the topography of this part of the land is that it slopes towards the property line?
It does.
Okay. So in theory, the shed would be higher and drier if it were closer to the parking lot.
It would.
I don't have any other questions.
Jessica?
No further questions for me.
Ed?
Yes, the question I had, have you talked with anyone from the Township Code Office about the shed and why you needed an application for a variance?
Yes, yeah, from the very beginning, I came and I approached our fine folks, Kelly, yes, with the township, and asked what would need to be done and looked to see what all the options were. We started back in November, and we're trying to figure out if it might be possible to, what might be needed, and in order to get the, working together to get the insurance from the Cub Scouts, an agreement in place with the handmaids and the previous historical documents that have occurred with this property. We now sit here before you on March 5th with hopefully all the materials which might be able to help you guys render a appropriate decision.
Did the township people that you talked to, Kelly, did she mention where the shed could be placed without having to come for a variance?
We spoke about that, and I made 3 trips between the township offices and the handmaids to discuss what may or may not work. And at the end of the day, this was the end result of what it would be really the only thing that could work.
Okay, but we realize that the Cub Scouts aren't going to be the only one that can own this shed into the future because the shed has to be left there.
Well, we have language in the,
For both, it was kind of confusing to me. You could, their option, I think it was their option, whether they left it or you took it. So they could use it there into perpetuity for something else. It looked like it to me, I don't know, do you recall that language?
Mark, if you wouldn't mind, this is our resident lawyer who's worked on that document.
High-powered,
I will say that obviously we work as a team to try and get anything done.
All right.
My name is Mark Migliaccio.
Are you going to testify?
Yeah,
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear for the board, please.
Mark Migliaccio, Migliaccio, and I'm the 4th grade den leader. So to answer the question, I was the one who helped write the agreement, and my memory is that, and I don't have it in front of me, but my memory is that the handmaid's lawyer asked that at the end of the license, if it were ever to be canceled, that they would have the option to remain, have the shed remain there, or for us to remove it, I believe.
Right, so they would have the option.
They have the option if the
To have that
license
shed
were
in
ever terminated.
And I think if we were to grant a variance, that even if the shed was taken, that they would still have the right to have a shed there of an equal size, which presents problems. So it's not just the Boy Scouts that we would be talking about and giving a variance to. It would be anybody that once the shed is put there. That's the problem that we have to deal with. And this is a very large property, and I don't know how many different places where there would be ability to put this shed. But to be able to put a shed in somewhere where it's not allowed is something that's why we're here, without, to find out whether you have a reason to put it there. Why, the only reason so far that I've been able to hear is that they don't want it there. I mean, there's no reason why they can't look for other locations other than they want you to put it somewhere where you're not allowed to put it. And that's kind of hard.
We did need to have a place, as was testified earlier, close to the parking lot for easy access. And, we're talking about equipment like grills, the Pinewood Derby track. I mean, to have something way off on the field would be difficult and not practical. So that's why we picked that location close to and not in their fields. That was off in the wooded area.
And if I could just add to that, we're trying to be as considerate of their property as we can be. They have retreats with students, with people within the Catholic Church, et cetera. And so we don't want to impede upon their day-to-day functions. So putting it in the field or putting it in the rear lot would take us through their property more often. And while this will be primarily the adults accessing the shed, we may have our own scouts with us during that time. And we don't want to be bringing children through where they might be making noise that would be disturbing or anything like that. We met with the sister and the folks on site and found an area in the corner that was nondescript that we felt would work for us and that would not impede upon them. And that's why we're here today.
But you recognize that it could impede upon the neighboring property, so I have no say in it whatsoever.
At the time, there are other sheds along the property line, and we felt that it was sort of a good compromise. It is wooded along the fence, and our hope was that it wouldn't be an impediment to the neighbors.
Thank you.
But there are other sheds on this property, on the property line?
No. In the adjacent properties.
Okay,
There-
but
there-
those are, right.
there are
But
sheds
those are
along.
zoned differently.
Correct. I just mean it's not like we're putting up against someone's deck. There's another shed there. It's a similar use.
So when you go to the shed to get your equipment, do you usually back a trailer up to load up to go to like a jamboree or an event? Is that?
We don't have a
We
trailer.
don't have a trailer. We'd be mostly
Yeah.
minivans.
Employee bins filled with equipment.
How many vehicle trips do you imagine a month coming and going?
We were estimating 2 a month.
Yeah, probably,
2 trips, so 2 in, 2 out a month.
Yes.
most likely, yes. And there is in the license requirements about time. I believe it's 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. The sisters were adamant about we're Cub Scouts, so we don't traveling too late, but they were adamant about the time period. Again, I'm doing this from memory, but I think it was 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Cognizant of any, so make sure there's no noise at crazy hours for the neighbors.
The parking lot on this site, the existing parking lot, is very large. I mean, it's got to be several hundred feet long. Did you explore any other options, including down closer to College Avenue, where they have acquired now the neighboring property? They acquired a single-family home not that long ago, came before this board for zoning relief on that. And, I believe there's a garage in that house that you could pull a car right up off Coopertown Road and pull right in. Is there any reason you don't use that as space with them, or that they were not willing to talk about using any of that space or other places in this sort of lengthy parking lot?
The only space that was offered to us was in that corner net, so we're not aware of anything else. And I don't want to make that sound, I mean, they were very gracious to offer, but we went out and walked the property. We're not even aware. I mean, I don't know if you guys were of the other.
I had heard that was something that was recently acquired, but I also understand that there was a lot of back and forth with that, and it would just be I don't know if they wanted to maybe bring anything up with that property. Some of the issues in getting things approved.
Yeah. By the way, the restrictions that were imposed on the use of that driveway of the house that they acquired, 2 trips a month I don't think would have violated those restrictions. Were there any other places? We know that there's a Serenity Garden. We know that there's walking trails through the woods along Coopertown. I don't know if there's some paved walking areas at the lower end of the parking lot. There's potentially some places along the driveway coming in that are not within the setback. But it sounds like this was really the only option you were given.
Yeah, on those, the driveways coming in, those are within the walking trails. So really, this was sort of off to the side away from where those trails.
Yeah, I mean, the other challenge we do have is that we don't want to be clearing trees, so we needed to find a space that was large enough that, and that's some of the reason why we're back as far as we are, if my memory serves me right, is,
Also, the trees would obscure the shed in this area, as opposed to maybe along the driveway.
From the view of.
From the road.
Of the sisters.
From the road. Like,
Road.
on Coopertown, you wouldn't be able to see the shed, 8 months out of the year at all, I don't believe.
I don't think you'd see the shed at all, ever, in this location. The people who would see the shed are the neighbors. And have you talked to the neighbors?
we have not.
There's a fair amount of trees, if I might speak, there's a fair amount of trees in between the shed and the shed, for example, of the neighbor. That distance, there's a fair number of depth of trees, so
At the very far end of the driveway, close to the house that's been acquired, for which they secured pedestrian access from the back of that driveway, there appears to be some areas where it could have been put. Is there a walking path or other current uses create a reason why it couldn't be located on that end, do you know? You know the walking path's in the woods.
Sorry, which end are you referring to?
On page A7, on the lower right corner of the existing parking lot, near the property that was recently acquired, there's some space there between the property line, but at least that's a property line that they own both properties.
I know that in that area, the fence and the paved area are rather close to each other. Plus, there's some fencing there, I think, around their current trash or something like that. I know they have a small area built there already, right next to the driveway. And then as you go down towards College Ave, the driveway is in between 2 other fence lines. And so we just we didn't even propose going down that way. Again, we were trying to think of how we could hide as much as possible and be out of the way, as opposed to be anywhere that the sisters may in the future wish to put something themselves.
Could you indicate on A7 exactly where the trash receptacles are? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold on one second.
Yes. So I think you're talking somewhere around,
Yeah, it's right in this area here.
right. Would the Cub,
Trash there, so we don't.
would the Cub Scouts have any reason that they would not be okay with having would you, I know the sisters aren't here, but would you have a problem if it was close to that where there's already this trash structure?
Well, I also know that there is parking, that there are cars that typically park along the road there.
There shouldn't be parking along the driveway accessing College Avenue. The prior zoning ordinances or zoning variances don't allow it, so.
No,
There is,
Maybe I'm thinking about it different.
so this is right off the parking lot, and you can understand why the trash is there. There's a convenience which you would share of accessibility.
We would have to go back to the sisters and discuss it further.
Okay. You understand that in order to get a variance, there has to be a hardship, so, and you need to show that there's no place on the existing lot that the shed could lawfully be placed. So we're trying to help you maybe find a better solution. And if they won't work, then they won't work, you know what I'm saying?
The one thing I would say about that spot is I believe when I spoke with Kelly about that, I think that we did bring that one up, and it would face the Serenity Garden.
Well, the Serenity Garden's up here.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, and we're talking about, and this is out to college.
Okay, and this would require a 50-foot setback as well, though, correct?
But they own this property. So, so in theory, yes, but maybe that's relief that would be less onerous, or, you know, we have to give the minimum relief necessary to achieve the, you know, the purpose of the variance?
Yeah, I think I was under the impression that if it had to be 50 feet away from the property line, and this is a property, this is a separate property that may or may not, at some point in the future, be transferred to someone else, then it would be a bigger issue at that point. So
As opposed to being for this property owner? For the property owner adjacent to the property where the shed is currently positioned? or
Being that the lots aren't consolidated, we were taking under the assumption that the setback was from every property line, and so we're trying to, again, stay as much out of the way as possible.
Understood. But there, okay, so you had at least thought about it, but here, at least there isn't, since they own both properties, it might be easier relief to be granted.
A question, would relief need to be granted if we were to move it there, since they own both? Would we need to come back?
Yeah, because they're not consolidated.
They're not consolidated at this point.
Let's go off the record. Waiting for the red light to go off. Off the record, Chris. Back line?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, just to clarify, when we were initially in discussions to see what might be a possible placement for the shed, we looked around the property lines and understanding that the zoning regulations in place, considering these are two separate parcels, indicated we needed to be 50 feet away from the borders, really meant that those areas alongside the trash routes were not an option. Should, again, being under the impression that the properties are two distinct properties and may need to be separated at one point in the future, at which point this would be an encroachment, this was the one place that really made, it was really the only viable option to ensure that the rest of the ground stayed serene, to be an appropriate place for the folks enjoying a retreat, to have a pleasurable visual experience, and to keep it out of the sight most other spots.
Bill, do you have any other questions?
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, though.
Kenny, any questions?
No more, no.
Ed?
No other question.
Yes? So how close is the nearest house to the proposed original location of the shed?
I'm not sure how far setback that is from that property line, but I would guess it's at least 50 feet back from that fence,
I wouldn't want to venture a guess.
The house and the shed, is that what you're asking?
beyond the neighbor on the corner.
And you said you did not have an opportunity to talk with that neighbor to see how they felt?
No, I did actually, had stopped by, but they're undergoing a renovation, and there wasn't anybody seemingly around. The whole place was being gutted and renovated, it seemed like.
Okay. But for the constraints placed upon you by your new, I'll call him landlord, is there a spot on this property where that shed could be placed and be in conformity with the setback requirements? For example, perhaps where the trash is, or at the other corner of the parking lot where Mr. Rose was asking you about?
No.
So if they said, pick your spot, there's no place on this property where you could meet the 50-foot side yard setback with the shed?
No.
Have you looked closely at this site plan?
Well, I mean, where it could, what you're gonna, if what you're saying is there enough space there? Yes, there is. Is there enough space where it could go in a spot that's going to be detrimental to the sisters? That could happen, but that's not something that's a viable option. No.
To clarify, if we could not put the shed where we're proposing it, we do not know if we could have the shed on this property.
Because they may not let you put it somewhere.
Correct.
And we have looked at other options in town, as we're sponsored by Coopertown Elementary. Unfortunately, we can't do anything there because if they did it for us, they'd have to do it for everyone. Similar to other township properties, we've had off-the-cuff discussions. We've thought of having a shed at a den leader's house, but unfortunately, as your child ages out, then you are no longer in the pack. So trying to find sort of a neutral ground where we could have an agreement for a longer term was our most viable option.
Mark, I have one last question for you, if I may. If we were to grant a variance and condition on that it be used only by the Cub Scouts, the applicant, the property owner is not testifying, would that be, do you think that would be acceptable?
I think that would be acceptable, so, because they would ask the PAC to remove the shed, which we already agreed to do at their, again, I'm doing this from memory, but my memory
Yes,
is we already
and we are
agreed to
getting
do.
a yes from the owners.
Any other questions? Ken?
No.
Bill? No. Ed?
No.
Jess? Anything else you guys would like to add?
No.
Just thank you for hearing us.
You're welcome. It's our job. You guys can have a seat.
Thank you.
With that, I'll ask if there's any residents present that received certified mail that wish to testify. Ladies first. Yes.
I thought it was age before beauty.
I saw your hand signals. You were deferring. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Connie Behrens, Berens, 416 College Avenue. I am a neighbor of the Nuns. My property was actually cut out of their property. If you imagine a big rectangle, I'm the bottom half. I'm on College Avenue. If you'll bear with me for a minute, it may sound like I'm rambling, but it'll tie together. My bigger concern, I have nothing against the Cub Scouts, I have nothing against the nuns. My bigger concern is that when we have these meetings and we spend time and money and energy and send out registered letters and come to an agreement, if we don't then enforce what we've all agreed to, I don't understand that. So to go back, when we had the very contentious meeting about the Carlino house, which was in the other township building, I attended that meeting. And the only thing that was agreed to was a point I brought up. We agreed that all of you, it's on the record, you typed it, that the sisters would put, they have a big exit sign on the driveway that goes down by my house. The cars go down all day long. We share the deer, the fence, the driveways. That because it says exit only, people do not know where the entrance is. It is not intuitive that you would go down to a corner, go down another street, and then find their entrance. So the point I made then, that I'm making again now, is that people keep coming into my driveway, which I actually did the first time I went to their place to find the entrance, not knowing where the entrance is. And I asked very respectfully if they could just put on their signage, entrance around on Coopertown, or however they wanted to word it. And you all agreed, their lawyer agreed, I agreed. It was the only thing agreed to that night, and yet it hasn't happened. So my concern is when we agree with this, and it's on the record and it doesn't happen, what am I supposed to do? So that's why I'm here. We still need an indication now that they have bought the Carlino's house. Now it's even less intuitive that you drive down and turn up and go in. We need an indication on their sign. It says no entrance, exit only. Where do you enter? So I'd ask again that we just put something on their sign, entrance around the corner or the address or something. Thank you.
Any questions for Connie? Kenny?
No.
Bill?
Ms. Barnes, have you contacted the township? Because we don't enforce.
My commissioner,
Right, okay.
Andy Lewis, because it's on the record.
Is it on the record, but didn't we deny the application?
No, we agreed to that. Their lawyer, you guys, and me, that was the only thing we agreed to.
No. I meant the application, what they were trying to do it as a retreat center.
No, they were
They were
granted,
approved.
subject to conditions, one of which, if I recall correctly, was that they would post a sign on that College Avenue driveway.
And they have not.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can you look into that, please?
I actually have looked into that. Commissioner Lewis copied me on your email. I did take a look at the order. I was not at those hearings. It was a while ago. And the order itself wasn't quite clear to me what the signage needed to say, whether it was just to say exit only, et cetera. So I do have to go through, the notes of testimony. I had asked him if that was the case, if it was supposed to say both, because I wasn't sure, and it was not quite clear reading just that.
Well, I'm going to put a big sign up on my mailbox that says, this is not the entrance around the corner. It's silly. It needs to be on their side.
And that's absolutely fine, and I would be happy to, contact them and
Thank you.
push
Their
further
lawyer
with that.
did a great
I just wasn't quite sure what was actually agreed to at the meeting, so that's much clearer to me. Thank you.
Okay. Please come forward.
Members
Please
of the
raise
board,
your right hand.
good evening. Yeah, my name is Michael R. Lastowski,
Michael, I need this right here first.
L-A-S-T-O-W.
Michael,
Okay,
please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Michael Raymond Lastowski, Lastowski, 57 Meadows Lane, Haverford, Pennsylvania.
What would you like to tell us?
My property abuts the property that we're talking about tonight. My backyard abuts the property. I can see from anywhere in the back of my house the fence that we've been talking about, the chain link fence. There are no trees obscuring that view. It's completely open. I should say that the property there has been substantially developed. There's a 30-place parking lot that, again, I can see from my property. And in connection with that, they've installed very high lights with high intensity. I'm sure the insurance companies required that. So sometimes it's like living next to a Wawa parking lot. Now they want to construct a shed there, and it will be in full view of my property, day and night, because when they have those lights on, I'll see the silhouette of that shed. I found out about this because I got a notice of today's hearing, and I looked at the file today. Prior today, I didn't know why the shed was being put there. I knew nothing about the Boy Scouts and what the purpose was. And as you might imagine, I felt a little bit discouraged coming here knowing I'm going to be fighting the Good Sisters and the Cub Scouts. That having been said, I think if somebody had approached me beforehand, there might have been a way we could resolve this, because I'm confident there are places where this shed could be put where it would be considered of the sisters' use of their property, as the applicants had said, I'm quoting them, and also considerate of my use. Right now, where they propose to put it, I'll see it in plain view. I don't care if there's a shed there, so long as I just don't see it. I went to the property today, and that chain link fence, the fence line, extends all the way to Coopertown Road. When you get beyond the paved parking lot, it is a wooded area. And if my memory serves you right, they already have, on their side of the property, a small shed near that fence, the chain link fence, but in an area where I wouldn't see it from my property. I looked at the license agreement, and I looked at the application, and it says that the Scouts can construct this shed so long as it's not on the parking lot or in the Serenity Garden. And you've been over this, but there's a lot of area on that lot which is part of neither. I heard somebody from, remember in the back, well, the whole property is the Serenity Garden, but it really isn't. Now they're adding these walking trails, but I saw no evidence of trails that close to the fence line. There is room for the shed there. I think it would not require to get a variance, and I think they should seek to have the shed put there rather than imposing on my use of my property. They're seeking a variance, but I'm not a real estate lawyer, but I understand they have to show substantial and peculiar hardship, and more specifically, I think the owner has to show that. They're a licensee. The owner is the licensor, and so the licensee can come in and say it's a hardship for me because I want to do this, and they're restricting me where I can do it. But there's no burden on the actual owner. The owner can decide whatever they want. The owner could say, look, put it on the I want it on the parking lot, and it's done. But the owners imposed this condition, and as they repeatedly said, and out of consideration to the owner, that they want to be considerate of the owner's use of their property. They want to have minimum exposure to the owner so the owner won't see it. And where they're putting it, the owner really won't see it, but it'll be in plain view to me, and I just don't think that's fair. In terms of, it would be convenient to them, no doubt, if they put the shed right at the edge of the parking lot, because then they could drive their minivans up, and it's not much of a, excuse my expression, a schlep to bring things in and out. But you heard the inventory of things they're going to have there, and it's camping equipment, items needed for the Pinewood Derby, et cetera. We're not talking about any one particular item is going to weigh more than 10 pounds, and the Scouts were more than capable moving these items maybe to 30 feet that would be required if the shed were moved further on the fence, further along the fence line, more towards Coopertown Road. So, just in sum, I just don't think the shed will burden my use of my property. It'll be in plain view every day. Every day I pull into my driveway, I'm going to see that shed there. It'll be out of sight, out of mind for the owners, and I just don't think it's fair that this burden is being shifted to me. Again, I don't care if the shed's there, so long as I don't see it, and I'm more than willing, to meet with the scouts at my property whenever they want to come by. We could walk their property line, and I can point out suggested areas, and then maybe we can approach the sisters. I think the testimony was that this was the only area offered by the sisters, and but I don't think there's no testimony that they specifically asked the sisters, what about this spot, what about that spot? And the spots I'm referring to are the ones, again, that would be along the fence line, but closer to Coopertown Road and out of view of my property. I think that's all I have.
Okay.
And excuse me for my impatience at the beginning.
No. Questions? Kenny?
Yeah, do you have a shed in your backyard?
I have one in my backyard along the side of my property that's obscured from the view of the neighbors by shrubs. There are high shrubs surrounding it, so nobody sees it. And that's the same at my neighbor's property on my left, which also abuts this property. They have a shed there, but it's you can't see it because they have, there are high bushes obscuring it.
So how many properties off of Coopertown is your property?
I should know that, shouldn't I? I think from what I tell the Uber drivers, I think it's 5.
5?
Yeah, I think, or maybe 4. I mean, it might be the 4th.
You're not adjacent to the property owner on the corner of
No,
Meadows and Coopertown?
no.
You think you're 5 down?
I could draw it on a map if you'd like.
No, we can see the property divisions of the back of the properties on Meadows here.
The only thing I would add, again, this sanctuary garden, or serenity garden, is a very discreet area on a very, very large property. I don't know what the acreage is, but it must be like 5 acres, at least. And, a good 25% of it is wooded. And not heavily wooded. It's not like old forest wood. I mean, you have like a lot of young trees that you could cut down with a hand tool.
Anything else? No. Kenny, you have anything else?
No.
Ed?
No,
Jess?
No.
Just one final comment. Again, I'd like to accommodate everybody here. If they put it where I don't see it, I don't have a problem. If it's obscured somehow, I can live with that. But I just don't want, a new structure visible from my building. Again, day and night. I say night because they have these commercial lights that shine on the property after dark.
Mike, there's a legal test that needs to be met. You raised some of the issues. I didn't want to engage in legal and technical discussion with the applicant, but have you spoken to the Cub Scouts?
No, I didn't. In fact, I called the zoning office, I think yesterday, and asked if they had counsel. I'm a lawyer. And if they had, I would have called the guy up right then and there. And so I haven't had an opportunity.
Because, and as you know, the only way to overcome this hurdle, if the board were to find no hardship, would be for it to be moved out of the side yard setback, not further down College Avenue. That wouldn't resolve.
No, but I'm sorry, I think within the setback, they could do it further down College Avenue, because the parking lot doesn't extend, let me back up. I'm sorry, Coopertown Road is the street we're talking about.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the parking lot, though you've heard me complain already how big it is, it doesn't extend anywhere near Coopertown Road. I mean, it's probably 100 feet, I think. As you're facing my property, there's probably 100 feet between Coopertown Road until you hit that parking lot.
And just to make sure you realize that this shed is proposed to be positioned at the very top end of the parking lot, between that edge of the parking lot and the property line, the fence between the applicant's property and what I believe is the second house in from Coopertown on Meadows, you're the fifth house.
Yeah, yeah. But when I saw the property today, even that corner was like visible from my house, you know, because of the way the lots are configured. Again, again, I'm happy to sit down and talk to them about some resolution, and I don't know whether the procedures and the law is such that if there's no opposition, they could be granted, a variance.
Not necessarily.
Okay, well, you've just educated me. All right.
The only way that you would be able to have discussions with them and assist them with alternate locations would be if they requested that the case be continued
Okay.
to our next hearing, and then you would have an opportunity to speak with them and maybe act as an intermediary with the handmaidens to try to work out a location that wouldn't require a variance. So
Okay.
if they ask for a continuance, we're more than happy to grant it, but if they don't, then they proceed on the application that's before us.
I understand. Thank you.
Anyone else that received certified mail? Any other residents of Haverford, regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? Okay. Like you were the principal spokesperson.
I'm sorry.
I'll ask you.
Yes.
So Mr. Lastowski, who happens to be an attorney, said that he hasn't had an opportunity to speak with you guys, and he, you know, is familiar with that property and would be willing to meet with you and look at some other sites for the shed near where it is now, but that would be within the setbacks, and then help act as an intermediary with the handmaidens. If you want to avail yourself of that, then we'll continue this case to our next hearing, which is in 2 weeks. If you want to let the application stand as it is, then that's how we'll proceed. It's completely up to you.
I think we would like to continue that and have an opportunity to just speak a little bit more.
I need to swear.
You would need to be sworn in.
If you're going to confer privately, then we're okay.
Can we do that?
If she wants to speak on it, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity?
Leanne Tree. Leanne, Lyan Tree, TRI. And I'm director of the Center Father Center, and representative of the Handmaids of Sacred Heart. What I would like to say today is that really that spot is the only spot that we really could offer. First is for the sake of the scout itself, because it's like on the driveway, they can drive there and then load their things better and not interfere with our retreatants, which are the purpose of the center. The place is really for silent, for choirs, for people who want to seek to prayer and serenity and quiet. So if we are having the scout come into other location, might interfere with other activities where we have people just pray in silence. And that location also helpful because it's like not so obvious on the grass field where the serenity is set because of the large field of grass. It makes people more serene to pray. So the location probably the only space that we really can offer. Even when we can sit down and talk, we would not know where exactly we would be to offer the scout. And we know the scout really needed the shed because they have been looking for that option for a long time. I remember in 2016, somebody approached the center and asked if they can use a shed that we have. And we really did not have any shed that is empty for them to use. And they tried to look for other places, and they came back lately, and we said probably that is the only thing we could help them with. So even when we sit down and talk, I wouldn't think that we'll be able to offer other location. That is really what.
So there's no other spot?
Yeah.
A little closer to Coopertown Road and set back the 50-foot from the side yard
that will be at the other side of the parking lot, I think. If it's other side of the parking lot is right on the grass field, and the shed will be much more obvious, more be seen than in the wood. I think from the fifth house, you will be able to see more than in the wood. Probably that is the only place that is more covered right now.
So why would you want them to have it there, 5 feet from the side yard instead of setback 50 feet?
If it's too deep into, because we have the trail walking path for the people to walk, and if it's right in the middle of the wood, I think it will be like block the walk path of the people. So I think that is probably the best for the people.
Ms. Tree, can I
Sure.
show you the map?
Absolutely.
So, here is the shed, and here's the edge of the parking lot. And so people have talked about, this is the Serenity Garden, and this is wooded. And there might be any number of places off the edge, closer to Coopertown, between Coopertown and the driveway, but up near the top, that would be easy for vehicular access for the Scouts. Still comparably away from your building, but not hard against the properties on Meadows. And perhaps within, or perhaps still outside your front yard setback, which is a different setback. Is there really no place right in here in the woods?
I think we can probably, as right now, what we plan is 5 feet away from the fence, which is on our property. The fence is on our property,
Yes.
it's not on the line itself. So if possible, we might be able to move maybe 3 feet more out of the fence, but not too much in the wood, because it's the place, even though it is, it's wooded, but the place where people really sit and pray, so we wouldn't want it to be too obvious. To disturb the whole serenity of the wood.
Does your walking trail go around the entire perimeter?
People walk in the wood. We have marked with branches on the wood, but outside people walk wherever.
They walk wherever. So you weren't trying to, so why, even if we kept it on this side here, along this property line, but we just moved it closer to the driveway?
How close do you think?
Because
The driveway, the parking lot is a little bit higher, quite high. So I don't know if it's
well, we heard, right, we heard that the property slopes down to the property line. So in theory, if it were closer to the driveway, maybe not on the driveway, but within several feet of the driveway, it might be in a higher place and therefore less likely to be inundated with water.
I think we can move a few feet, but I'm not sure how it is going to be. If it's right in the middle of the wooded area, it will destroy the village. So I think if we have to move, maybe not too much.
Let me just ask you two questions. Are you willing to talk to the Scouts about potential places to move it?
Not out of that spot, no.
Okay,
It's
so
that
just to be,
the
so just to be
area that we think is the
100%
best.
clear,
Yeah.
the Handmaids of the Sacred Heart are only willing to allow the Scouts if they place it in the area discussed tonight. Otherwise, there's no agreement.
And if I might, we've just had conferring with the other property owner who says that they're more than willing, if it's okay to put an evergreen, have that planted on the side of the shed, between the shed and his property, and that would be, he'd be amenable to that, if that would be okay with you. If that's, would that be correct?
This is Mike Listowski again. Are we on camera?
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm eager to seek a solution here, and I said I'd be willing to discuss it. But I'd like something more concrete than just a statement on the record that we discussed evergreens.
Right. We're gonna continue the case for 2 weeks. That doesn't get over the legal hurdle. You know, but hopefully there will be some additional conversation. If you have a chance to look at the other area, maybe it won't be quite as far in as Ms. Tree thinks it would appear to be in, if there's some conversation about that. All right. With that, this case is continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting on March 19th. We're going to take a 5-minute recess while the Cubs leave the room.
Thank you again for all of your consideration and for working with us.
Thank you.
See you, kids. Yes.
You're going live on TV.
Okay.
It's not live.
All right, we're going to resume. Our next case, Z20-3, Tim and Colleen O'Driscoll, owners of 305 Buck Lane, Haverford, PA, DC folio number 2205-0011400, who seek a variance from provision 182711B1 to allow a deck to be built extending 7 feet past the required 10-foot separation between accessory buildings. Property is zoned R1 and located in the 5th ward. Good evening.
Good evening.
And are you both going to speak?
We may, but I'll speak first.
I'll swear you both.
Okay.
Sure.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Or what is it?
I do.
We do.
So you go first. What's your full name and address for the record?
Yes, Timothy John O'Driscoll, 305 Buck Lane, Haverford, Pennsylvania, 19041.
And your full name?
Colleen O'Driscoll, 305 Buck Lane, Haverford, Pennsylvania, 19041.
Okay. And you have some exhibits that Mr.
Yes.
Malone was kind enough to
Yes, he was.
help you organize and pre-mark. So we need to identify those for the record now.
So, off the record, I identified Exhibit A1 as a one-page site plan. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Exhibit A2 is a single page but two-sided. The front of it is from Keystone Custom Decks, entitled Elevation, and shows a rendering of the proposed deck. Is that correct?
Correct.
The rear side of that is a footing plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
A3 is a framing plan on the front side, again from Keystone Custom Decks, with the rear side being a deck cross-section. Is that correct?
Yes.
A4 is a floor plan from Keystone Custom Decks, again with the rear side being the pergola plan, again showing a rendering of the proposed deck. Is that correct?
Yes.
And A5 is, again from Keystone Custom Decks, a railing cross-section on the front side and electrical plan on the rear. Is that correct?
Yes.
At this point, those are the exhibits that you want the board to look at, pending any questions, and you were advised that if you want anything else to be looked at, we can as the hearing progresses.
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I'll just say that since you have the same last name, I assume you're married, which I assume that means you finish each other's sentences. Please don't do that tonight.
Okay. Please tell us a little bit about what you would like to do. And
Yes, so we'd like to build a deck on the back of the house. As you can see from Exhibit A2, that is the back deck portion there. We do have an existing small deck on the side. The back deck portion is what we would like to build along with a small, I guess you'd say, corner deck that allows access from the small deck to the larger deck. And so 2 and 3 on Exhibit A2, what is marked as 2 and 3 within that picture is what we would like to build and what we are applying for. In terms of the regulation, the code section that was referenced, I must say, and you all know better than I do, but I had to read it quite many times to try to determine, if this was even a violation. In my initial thoughts, and then obviously you all know better than I do, but we're not erecting a garage or accessory building. There is an existing garage off to the side that's been there for years. We're not proposing to touch that, and that's been there for years. What we're proposing to do is to build this deck. There is, in any event, a 10-foot separation between the proposed deck and any structure, including this garage that you can't see in A2, but it's off to the side here. It would be in the lower, off of the lower left-hand corner. What I assume is that the regulation is being interpreted as saying that, there's essentially, if you look at the on the horizontal lines, if you will, there's not 10 feet back in that way. Right. So, the regulation does not read to me that way, but of course you know better than I do about that. As I say, there is 10 feet certainly separating the proposed deck as well as the garage. There is, aesthetically, it's very pleasing, I think, to us and to neighbors. There is no safety issue whatsoever, if that was a concern behind the regulation. As I say, there's 10 feet or more between all the structures. It does not interfere with any egress or ingress. In addition, if that were a concern, off to the side on A2, well, you can see on A1 too, A1 as well. Off to the right of the house there is a very large space there as well. It's, I would estimate, you can't tell from this picture exactly how large it is, but it's at least 10 to 15 feet. You could drive a car through there if you needed to, of grass that easily allows ingress and egress. It's a large property. So, you know, A1 actually is probably the one to look at if you want to see where the existing garage structure is that we're not proposing to touch. If it were deemed to be a violation of the code section, which again, I'm not sure that it is, but if it were deemed to be, we would request a variance or an exception. There would not be any way to build a deck here on the back of the house to have use and enjoyment of the property that we own. If this were deemed to be a violation, unless you were to somehow take down the existing garage and move it, 7 feet back or something like that, which would not be really feasible or make a lot of sense. So that is basically our view.
And what would be the distance from the proposed deck to the garage?
It is at least 10 feet. The contractor has told us that, and that was in the application here. That's what we're asking for. The deck extending 7 feet past the face of the garage, if you're looking at the horizontal, to the rear of the main house with a minimum of 10 feet clearance around all existing. So I know it will be at least 10 feet. That is all we're asking for. I don't know if it's going to be 11 or 12 or 10 and a half. I'm not sure exactly. And I don't know if you can tell from this picture, but what we're proposing and asking for is that it be given, that it be at least 10 feet.
Is your property fenced?
It is fenced, yes, it is fenced on, if you're facing this garage that is the existing structure, it is partially fenced, the entire back half is fenced.
So where on A1 would you say your fence begins?
A1 fence begins where it says, on the left-hand side, where it says the 13 feet, indicating the width of the driveway, or the horizontal line indicating 13 feet. The fence begins there. There are shrubs from there to the street, but the fence begins there at that 13-foot mark approximately and goes all the way back to right where the woods begin.
And then does it go across your property and up the other?
And then, and then also there is no fence from that point where the woods begin to the back end here, the bottom of the property line. There is a fence here on this property line. That's at the bottom of A1 where it says property line. There is a fence there. That's not our fence, but there is a fence there. These woods, incidentally, this is our property, but just for context, you should know that the woods go extend on either side too. It's quite private, actually. The woods extend on A1 on either side, so it's what is directly contiguous to these, what you're seeing here on A1 is not like a house and a yard on this back end. It's more woods for some radius around that.
Okay. And on the other side of your property, where's the fence go?
On the other side of the property, there is a fence that begins approximately where it says 410 feet, where the woods basically end on the right-hand side of A1. There is a fence there. That is actually the neighbor's fence. That is not our fence. And then there are those trees, as you can see, those are pine trees that are technically on our property, or at least partly on our property. I guess they're planted on our property.
So does the fence run down the property line?
The fence, no, I think the fence ends at some point where these pine trees are. I don't think,
Does that fence just intersect your property line, or does it run down, back, or forward?
it just, it runs along the perimeter of our property line,
Around the wooded area or the front part of your property?
the front part of the property. Yeah, in the back there, as I say, there are woods on either side of what you're looking at here. There are woods on either side of our property line. You wouldn't know, if you walked out in those woods, you wouldn't know exactly where the property line was. You would estimate.
So the front part of our property, though,
If-
there's
if,
no
um,
fence here, right?
No, the front part of the property, this is
If emergency service personnel needed to get into your backyard, you know, worst case scenario, God forbid, you have a fire. Are they gonna have a problem getting access to fight a fire near your house? Given that there won't be, that's the theory behind the 10-foot separation between structures.
Oh, okay.
On a parallel basis. That emergency crews would be able to get to the back of the house
okay.
and
Right. No, they wouldn't, and as a matter of fact, I don't think that this deck would make it any different from their perspective to even do that.
you said no, they wouldn't. Would they be able to get to the back of your house?
Oh, yes, they would. I was answering, no, they wouldn't have any trouble. No, they wouldn't, and they would not have any trouble, and I don't think that this deck would in any way interfere with that at all, actually.
Questions?
I just, Tim, a real simple question.
Yes, sir.
In order to, if we were to grant a variance, and we said, you know, as a condition that you, if you build this deck, there will be at any angle from the nearest corner of the garage, a 10-foot radius swinging all the way around that corner, so that a vehicle could get in. You'd be okay with that?
Yeah,
Is that right?
my understanding is that is how this is designed, yeah.
And that you would not be fencing that area in a way that would preclude a vehicle from getting in there. Is that?
That is 100% correct.
Any?
No question.
Jess?
No questions.
Ed?
Quick question here. On your existing house before your proposed deck, is it closer than 10 feet back from the existing garage already? I can't see a measurement here. It looks like 10 feet.
I think it's around 10 feet, yeah.
But the 10-foot line I'm seeing is going like an eighth of it way into the garage. So it suggests to me that the garage is already closer than 10 feet. Is that possible?
Well, I've never measured it, so I guess I can't say 100%, but based upon, I never thought about it before this issue came up, so I'm just going on the measurements of the deck that they're building and what we're talking about here, that it seems like it would be around 10 feet, but I don't know the exact measurement.
Okay. No other questions?
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, we had our, nothing from us, no, nothing from us. Our neighbor kindly offered, he saw the sign on our front yard and said he would offer to come over here to offer his support, which was very kind of him.
Okay, just a few more real quick questions. What utilities would you propose to install on the deck? Like just electric? Is there gonna be water, any sort of heat?
No,
What utility?
Just electric.
just electric? Just electric.
And there's no covering in the renderings. So, do you ever put that, there's a lattice? Pergola.
That's what they call it. That was new to me too as of December.
But there's not gonna be any permanent structure. It's not gonna be enclosed, in other words. the deck.
No, no.
Nothing else. Anybody?
No.
Okay. With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail.
I'm their neighbor, I don't know what kind of mail I
Okay.
do or can't.
You're the only person in the room, so come on up. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name and address for the record?
My name is Andrew Whitney. I live at 215 Buck Lane, Haverford, Pennsylvania, 19041.
And where's that in relation to their property?
A few houses down on the same side of the street.
What would you like to tell us?
Well, I was just calling, or just here to support their application. In reading the zoning regulation, I wasn't sure what the purpose behind it was. I understand that it's safety. I thought it might have been an aesthetic thing, and was coming to support their application in the sense that their deck that they're proposing is just going to be beautiful. It's not going to be a detriment to the neighborhood. It's really going to be an enhancement to the neighborhood and not visible from the street whatsoever.
Would you suggest that we come over and check it after it's built? If it's-
I think so.
Absolutely.
Coolers are welcome. No, I think it would be a great addition. It really is going to enhance the value to their property, and indirectly, it's going to enhance everyone around their property, including myself. So I wanted to encourage you to approve their request and thank the O'Driscolls for making the investment.
Any questions? No? Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
With that, we'll close the record on this case, and a decision will be rendered either this evening, or if not this evening, at our next regularly scheduled meeting on March 19th. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Call
you.
Kelly tomorrow.
Okay.
Don't have to wait.
Oh,
get the
okay,
decision.
okay.
Get to it.
Great.
She'll know.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay with that?
Off the record.
We'll go back on, please, Chris. All right. In the last case we just heard, Z 20-3, Tim and Colleen O'Driscoll. Kenny, are you prepared to vote?
Yes.
Bill, are you prepared to vote?
I am.
Ed?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
And so am I. Bill, would you please take that decision?
Yeah, with respect to KZ 20-3, Tim and Colleen O'Driscoll, 305 Buck Lane, I would vote to grant the requested relief, subject to the following conditions. The applicants will maintain at all times at least a 10-foot separation between the garage or any other structure and the deck at all angles. There will be no fencing or other obstructions within that separation. The pergola structure is the only type of physical structure on top of the deck. There will be no wall enclosures. The utilities on the patio or deck, rather, would be limited to electricity only. The construction of the deck will be done in a manner that will prevent water runoff on neighboring properties. And the construction will be completed within 1 year of the date of this meeting and in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Jess?
I agree.
Ed?
I agree.
Kenny?
I concur.
And so do I. That application's approved with those conditions, 5-0. Any other business?
No other business.
All right, then we are adjourned.